What's good, world? It's your boy, Bears Prison Flemings, host of the Find Your Flow Show, a podcast dedicated towards creativity, authenticity, and expression. Be sure to follow us on all social media, subscribe to our YouTube channel, like, comment, and share. On today's episode, we'll be talking to Chanel Beebe, a multi-dimensional abstract artist, curator, consultant, and a doctor. We discussed her artistic process, various collections and exhibitions, as well as her creative vision. Be sure to follow her on all social media as well. Enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody. How's it going? My name is Bears Prison Flemings. I am an artist and podcast host of the Find Your Flow podcast. Also, a longtime friend of Chanel, very proud moment for me personally. I know we're all fans here, but for me it's just very special because Chanel's known me since I was a wee lad. Arms a lot smaller.
Yes. Before he was a heartthrob.
Well, what's insane is, as long as I've known Chanel, she's always been focused, driven, passionate, and an executioner. In the best way. Best way.
Oh yeah, because I don't be killing people.
She kills it all the time. So for the audience out there who might not be familiar with who you are, what you do, first off, she's a doctor, Dr. Chanel. Let's put some respect on that name. But could you just speak on what you do, who you are?
Okay. So my name is Dr. Chanel Beebe. I am born and raised in Detroit, Michigan. I've been painting and writing my whole life. I've been creative my whole life. I also have been entrepreneurial in some way for a long time. When I met Barris, because I started a school store and Barris was working security. I also have engineering degrees, which has given me a certain lens to look at this world. So my undergrad degrees are in industrial engineering. My master's degree is in industrial engineering. My PhD is in engineering education, so teaching engineering. But while I was in school, I kept painting. I also started to realize that there were a lot of things I was passionate about that were outside of my curriculum. There were a lot of needs that I was connected to that my full-time engineering jobs weren't addressing. So while I was in grad school, I started a company focused on social and educational equity, where I do research and teaching consulting. At this point, that's what I do full time. There was a moment where I was working in industry as a researcher, as an engineer, but through a lot of turn of events, I got laid off at a time where I had enough money to kind of lean on myself in a way. So for about a year and 3 months now, I've been working for myself as a full-time consultant artist. I also have been curating art shows for a while. So as I was doing all those things and trying to find space for myself as an artist, I realized there was a lot of skills that I had, kind of from me being an entrepreneur and an engineer, where I'm really organized, really detail focused, that lend themselves very well to curating art shows. So I've been curating shows for myself and for other people since 2014. So
That's after the congregation?
No, I was curating way before the congregation. I've been at the congregation for 4 years now. But that I got as a function of curating some other shows.
Okay, word. Yeah. So not doing this true.
Yeah, real true. That's real true.
So already, I think it's just very interesting because a lot of people, I feel pick a side, right, with their brain. We either see ourselves as left brain or right brain. We are either detail-oriented, analytical, driven by details, or we're free-flowing spirits, we think more so in not straight lines, but in loose curves and explosions. Right here. So you're someone who I've always known can kind of whip it both-handed, I like to say. You know what I'm saying? In the kitchen. So
come on,
I feel like Brush and Focus is an exhibition that explores that side of you perfectly. Because when it comes to art, especially abstract art, it's its own world. It's its own world of expression. But when it comes to photography, I feel yes, photography is an art form, but above everything, it's a craft. And it requires a certain eye, a certain vision, and a certain engineering mind to be able to compose and produce a shot in the ways that you would like it to be seen. So in this exhibition, Brush and Focus, could you just kind of explain what brought you to this point, what made you want to explore the camera, and then how you brought your own style into this exploration?
Wow, so many things I could say. I think I've always spent a lot of time bouncing back and forth between left and right brain. When I went to school to understand how people learn, I learned that neurology and neuroscience actually doesn't hold up the claim that there's a left and right brain. That's not a thing. Your brain doesn't actually function like that. It would be really weird and you would be really incomplete if that happened. I think instead there are ways that we've been socialized to think of learning and doing, some of which feel very constrained and disciplined and some of which feel very free-flowing. But for me, I think in order to have any sense of mental health, I needed a good mix of both, right? And I think, from growing up as a very creatively enabled child and being able to do what I felt like doing, I knew that I wanted to play, I wanted to make a mess. But also growing up, in a house where I saw how organized my mom was and how organized my parents were and how organized they were when it was time to do stuff and how that meant tangibly I had a place to live, that meant tangibly I had a place to do what I wanted to do. I always knew they were equally necessary. And I think, as I developed as an artist, the same thing kind of happened where there is so much free flow that has to happen in abstract art. But at some point it has to be finished. At some point it has to get out the door. At some point people want a title for it. At some point, there's something that will illustrate it. So I think I had already been kind of playing with that back and forth with my abstract work as I was curating art shows, as I was becoming known as an abstract artist. I found myself there's this flow and there's this mess and there's how I talk about it when I talk to people I went to school with, and then there's how I talk about it when I talk to people who don't know me, right? It gets smaller, it gets bigger. Photography has always kind of been present in the background. Like I said, I've been painting and drawing my whole life, but my two best friends when I was in high school were really into photography, and they would let me play with their cameras. But it created a distance because as they were getting good at that, I was doing other stuff. So it got to the point where anytime I wanted a picture taken, I would just call them, right? And for good reason, because they call Ahmad Barber is a really big photographer that shot literally everybody from Viola Davis to Tyler Perry, all of them. And then King Chloe Katz is one of the most creative creators I know. And she's featured in the show because she was the first person I ever saw paint on her photography. But it took a long time for me to feel like that was something I needed to do, right? Because I think a lot of us, especially being from Detroit, we're really focused on what is it that the world needs from me, and if somebody else is doing it, then that's their thing, So I've been taking pictures with their camera for a while. I've been taking pictures on my phone. I can't tell you how many Instagram pages I have that are just pictures of trees that Chanel took that I don't want to bother my followers with. What actually made me take the leap and buy a real camera was I was doing an art event and my photographer canceled the day before, and I was like, I could just buy a camera, can't I? Ain't nothing stopping me from buying a camera. I could just do that. And I bought it and I shot my little artist talk. And then the next day I was curating the show for an artist by the name of Quadre Red Curry. And Quadre is a whole aesthetic. So when I walked into his reception, I happened to have my camera with me and I was just well, I gotta figure it out. And he absolutely loved those pictures so much that he hired me to shoot a gig the next weekend. And as I'm looking back at these pictures, I'm these can't stay on my camera, they can't stay on my phone, Instagram is not doing them justice, I need to see them. And then once I got it printed out, I was all right, they need something else. So it kind of was a long journey to the photography side of things, but I do think throughout that, right, there's that there's the constraining and then expanding, right? There's photography is something that Chloe and Ahmad do. Oh, photography is something I can do. All right, well, photography is something I can get paid for, but it's kind of really fun still, and I want to play with it. So when it was time to do the show and time to come up with the title for the show, I needed it to speak to both of those, right? The flow of the brush, but also the focus of making a decision at some point or making a story or letting the story be there. And even the design of the flyer, that flyer took me so long to design. Mostly because I wanted the visual of it to give that play, right? And I could have, to me, it initially made more sense to make the brush, the creative bubble letters and the focus, but I'm no, that's not the point I'm trying to make. The point I'm trying to make is there is constraint and freedom, and there's freedom and constraint, and there's a necessity happening across the two of those, and the collaboration of those I think is where I'm going as an artist. So that's why this show is both photography that I've painted on, it's also prints, it's abstract paintings that I've done the most on, it's also some of the simplest work that I've done before. And it feels kind of now I know who I am creatively. Now I know, I've seen my body of work a few times. I've curated enough shows. I've been in enough places where I'm I'm the space between constraint and contract. I'm that,
Balance.
Yeah, which is not quite left brain, right brain, but still that energy of like the whole brain, like doing what it needs to do.
Well, I just want to say for mine, it's just amazing to see you actualizing your vision into reality. You mentioned that you really started taking the camera serious out of necessity. And I feel like a lot of times as artists, that's where we find some of our greatest breakthroughs, either through necessity or through limitation. And could you maybe perhaps speak to the place of conflict or adversity in your creative process and how you end up transmuting that energy into the creative expression?
Yeah. I mean, so at the ripe old age of 33, one thing I've learned is that like the only constant is change. And you're gonna be uncomfortable kind of regularly, right? So I've been learning to reconceptualize conflicts and discomfort and doubt and all of that as just like a part of the journey. Because there's been so much of it at this point that I can't take it that seriously. Like in that moment, it's like, but like 5 minutes later, 5 days later, it conceptualizes itself. For this show, to me, this show is conflict because like this is Westland City Hall. Westland is not great with our people, and city halls are usually not a place that we come to like thrive and survive. So when I accepted doing the show here, it kind of was like, oh, that's an odd place. It's not a typical gallery where you can see everything at once. You gotta go around the corner. It's a 20-minute drive through some really weird jurisdictions to get here. So if I'm doing that right, then it needs to be something that's worth it. It needs to be something that people haven't seen for me. So there was that conflict of like, am I really about to, do a show at Westland City Hall? Like, let me make sure I got my paperwork together, right? So, because I got to be in there. There was also the fear of like, what if nobody shows up? What if nobody comes? What if nothing sells? And that conflict, I think, is ever present. Every event, every time I come here, there's that like, oh, we gonna see, But I think every time I get doubtful, every time I get to that place where something isn't quite working, there's something necessary there. There's something important that I needed to understand, I needed to push, I needed to like reconceptualize. And in the show, I was just telling my cousin about this, or really anybody I've talked to over the past 24 hours. In this show, I think what I needed to see was the reminder of why I create, and being able to carry that as I get deeper in the business of art. Because I think I've resisted the business side of art for so long, which doesn't, like if you know me, I've been doing the business side of art decently. But I've been doing it from a place of privilege, right? I've been doing it from a place of like, I have engineering degrees, I have a whole consulting firm that pays my bills. So technically any money I lose on artwork is really just a tax write-off, right? So like me being financially successful as an artist has not really been necessary. But I've been doing it so hard now that I want a sold out show. I want to be able to like calculate how much I spent on shows and how much I spent on supplies, and it'd be less than how much I made, and I'm just getting to that place. And I think because I'm now at the place where I'm like, oh, I have financial goals for my artwork, I'm irritated, I'm concerned, I'm more sensitive, I'm more all of these things. And I think that's a necessary like evolution of my journey, and also that's not why I create. So I can't let me showing up for the show and me doing the things be stopped by the fact that I now have these new goals and these new concerns. But I do need to figure out how to carry those things at the same time. And that conflict is like an ever present. Like today, the first 20 minutes I was sitting here by myself, and you're like, ooh, is this what it feels like if nobody like, maybe I need to stop making work, and even before the show started, I usually like hire people to help me set up, but I've been so in my head about spending money that I've been like, oh, let me not. So I'm in here sweating, like, can I really do this? And as I'm like concerned and sweating, my uncle comes in and he helps, and he's like here for a minute, and then I'm sitting at the first 20 minutes of the show by myself, and my cousin comes, so usually there's like a moment when you kind of have to sit in it. It kind of has to be like the worst case you could possibly imagine. It has to be as ugly as imagined, so you can see yourself for real and be like, okay, but are you trying to go home? Just ain't nobody here? Like, no, actually, I'm starting listening to music. I'm chilling. Like, I'm in a room with my artwork. And then, joy cometh in the morning kind of thing. And then your cousin shows up and something happens or something sells and you're like, okay. But learning that, like, you have to have the patience to see that through, right? And learning that, like, at some point, something's gonna flip, something's gonna change. And like the deeper you get into it, sometimes the longer that gap is. And that's that muscle. You know, when you talk about you doing 500 push-ups a day, like there's a burn that you feel, and that burn gets deeper the more you do them. And then over time, you got to do more push-ups to get to that same burn. You know, it's the same thing I think creatively for me, where it's like, as it gets deeper, I have to get stronger. You know, and I have to get
being uncomfortable.
Yeah. Or just uncomfortable. Like letting that be okay. Like unhappy, concerned, discouraged. Like, because I'm used to being so like, and then sometimes when I'm not, I'm like, it's something wrong. It's like, no, girl, you are sitting in Westland by yourself, looking at $3,000 of money you spent. That's what's happening right now. Like, sit with that. You know. And, you know, maybe we make different decisions going forward, or maybe we just feel differently about it going forward.
So I know multiple times you've mentioned that you had to use your why in order to power through the adversity, both outside and inside.
Yeah.
Could you speak more to why you create and also who you create for?
I think first and foremost, like every good artist, I create for myself. A lot of my artwork is like a scrapbook to something I want to remember and be able to come back to. As I've grown, as I've evolved, and as I've seen my artwork in this world, I know that that's not it though. In a lot of ways, I create for the legacy and the culture. In more explicit ways, I create for my people. Because at this point, you know, I've sold so much work to so many people that matter to me. If I quit, the value of that work goes down. You know, so I have a commitment to Mike, I have a commitment to my mom, I have a commitment to everybody who's ever bought a piece to stay the shit so that the value of this continues to rise, you know? So there's a certain amount of like investment for other people. And there's also, you know, a good amount of it that is like for the generations that come after me. Like even as a child, when I would be writing in my journals, I would imagine my kid finding this journal at some point and like, what would they think or what would they understand? Same thing for my artwork, where I'm like, you know, in 500 years when they're digging through the clay and they find this, like I kind of want them to be perplexed. I want them to be like, what was that going through? Like, what was that? Just to require them to like ask more questions and dig more deeply. So those are the majority of like my whys and why I do the artwork that I do and why I specifically like let the journey be what it is. But it's emerging, you know, and I found a little bit of it lately is there's also like a self-healing and teaching that's happening. There's a little bit of like learning how to take criticism, learning to disagree with self that's emerging, but I'm not gonna speak on that too much because that's like hot off the presses.
Okay. So you mentioned your family being a very important part of your support system. I noticed that you have one of the collections of many, we're gonna get into them all, called Divine Kinship.
Yeah.
Could you maybe speak on what Divine Kinship means to you?
I have been so blessed to be born and raised in Detroit. If you're not from here, I'm so sorry. But it's a good time, and it's a good time because of the people, both my blood family, but also like the community that I've been able to develop. I'm to the point now where I know it's not random anymore. And there's something about going to an event that your people threw and taking pictures of your people enjoying themselves and being able to look back on those pictures that like make that lesson really, really clear. So I was at a friend of mine, Bryce Detroit, does amazing things in general. He has this movement called Hood Close Gentrifiers. He also just has like this whole heart work movement. And as a function of that, he makes music and does all kind of things. And he's been doing these barbecues on Father's Day that he calls barbecues. And, you know, I have a father of my own who's still with me, so I spend most of the day with him. But when I can, I try to make sure I go and just kind of see my community. And for some reason this year, it could be because I had, you know, but like, for some reason it was just extra beautiful this year, you know, and it wasn't just like, I mean, I will say the weather was perfect, the sun was shining, the melody was popping, and the music was you know, but also I think, you know, I've been living back in Detroit now for I think almost 5 years. So a lot of the relationships that I've been in the process of building, they're like kind of in their like toddler phase, you know, they're moving like, so it was just how I felt about the people that I was looking at, the way that I believed in them, the way that I was like concerned or inspired by them, that was like coming through as I was snapping pictures of them. And it just felt so holy that I was like, oh yeah, this is his own series. there are probably like 10 more pieces from that one event that I probably still want to like get printed out and paint on. But that series is really close to my heart. And that series was actually the series that inspired me to make sure that every piece had a description on it, because I couldn't have my people hanging on a wall in West End and let it just be up to interpretation. Like, no, let me tell you, this is who this is, this is what this means, this is why it matters. So that series was like kind of the kickoff of like, let me get explicit about how I feel about the things that I'm showing.
I can hear your response that not only family, community, but also the city of Detroit is very, very impactful to who you are as a person. I know you have a series called Native Tourists.
Oh, yeah.
So one of my favorites, I feel like sometimes when you're driving down the city, like when you're driving down the streets, you're looking at the city skylines, and you see that one golden hour beam of sunlight passing down. It's like, wow, I'm glad to be from Detroit. I don't know if anybody else has that moment, but I definitely do. Could you maybe speak something about Native Tourists and what brought its inspiration, what brought its inception, and how you completed that series?
So the idea of being like a native tourist first came to me when I was going to school in Ann Arbor. And I came home, and I was coming home all the time because I wasn't that far. But like, I came home and I wanted a view of the water that I hadn't seen before. So I drove to Grosse Pointe, and little did I know that Grosse Pointe don't really want you there if you're not from there. Right, so I'm trying to go to these parks, and I'm like, I gotta have ID, I gotta pay. So I'm just like walking around like on the street in Grosse Pointe, looking at all these big houses and this beautiful view of the water. And I start singing to myself, tourist in my homeland, they don't want me here. So this idea of being a tourist where you're from has been in my mind for a while. And of course, after graduating from Michigan, I went away to school for a while and I came back. But I was coming back regularly, right? To the point that some of my friends, like my friends' little siblings, didn't know I didn't live here. That's how often they were seeing me, right? So as much as I was gone, I was here. But then when I finally moved back, like solidly, everything hit different. Everything felt different. Every party, every event, every family dinner, everything just felt like extra special and extra, just that golden hour, but all the time. And I think once I got, I had been taking pictures this whole time, but once I got that camera, it was like, no, I want to go take like the cheesy photographer pictures. Like I want the rinsing, I want the water, I want the trees, I want the fire hydrant at an angle. Like I want all the stuff that like tourists do when they go to a city, because I deserve that. And I think, having some distance from the city and coming back, and also just having visited so many cities across the country, I know how like entitled you can feel as a tourist. And I want Detroiters to feel that in their own city, because it's such a beautiful city, right? You deserve to be like excited, taking up space, and like, stopping people on the street to take pictures. So that series is very much about me enjoying that, right? Me enjoying like, yeah, I'm from here, yeah, I know where I'm at, I know where not to go, I know what used to be here, and also it's beautiful, and I want to take pictures, and I want to act like a tourist. But also I think there's a deeper like commentary on tourism as a concept, on what it means to be indigenous as a concept, right? Because like there are people, like we are native to this land in a whole different, deeper way. So my appreciation, my view, my composition of this land, it's a little different because there's something about me that's of this. So that's one of my favorite series. I want to do more of those. If there are like 10 extra pieces of Divine Kinship, there's like 100 pieces of Native Tourists that like as they come out. And all of these series, I really want to be their own shows in some way. Like the Divine Kinship is its own show. Native Tourists is its own show.
And I just feel like I especially appreciate this collection because I know while Detroit is becoming more and more popular, I think it's so important for us to be able to reclaim our own narrative. Mm-hmm. Because the more eyes that come onto our city, we're going to see a lot more narrative being spun from people who are around Detroit, or from people who have visited Detroit, or from people who work in Detroit but don't
corporate tourists.
The corporate tourists. So I think it's very, very much so important for us to just do everything that we can as creatives. I think that's part of our job as artists in order to tell our stories, but like you said, in order to exist boldly and proudly and be able to proclaim, I am Detroit.
Yeah. Detroit is not a blank canvas. It's not coming back from nowhere. We here, we got stuff to say. We cite us. It's like we got stories.
I think Detroit is also interesting because we do have such a unique creative community. I feel like we're full of characters. Everybody may or may not get along, but I think everybody is feeling themselves enough to know, like, hey, if you don't love me, I love you enough for the both of us. Could you maybe speak to the power of collaboration, inspiration in terms of community? I know Reclaim Root is a good collection that kind of explores that a little bit. If you could talk about that too.
I love these questions. Jesus Christ. So Reclaim Root is like so special to my heart. It almost didn't make it to the show because I didn't trust the description to do it justice. Because some of the topics that are addressed there, I think can sometimes be so triggering for people that I didn't want it to be up somewhere and I'm not with it. Like it feels like a baby to me still. The initial inspiration, I think, is definitely from King Chloe Katz. So she's been my best friend since we like met the first day of high school, but she also has been like going through her own journey of like exploring emotion, exploring color, and like creating visual experiences that like express this very nuanced experience. And I want to say it was 2016. I should go read it to be sure. But she did this series called Mad, and I think for a lot of Black women, we're not really able to like fully access our anger, even when we really need to and we deserve to. So watching her shoot that series, watching her like create this zine, and even like I think I shot a couple. She had a couple self-portraits in there that she let me shoot. So I was like not intricately, like pretty closely involved to her doing that series. It was very empowering for me. It was very like fear-shaking, where it was like, you can just say how you feel. It doesn't have to be a complete sentence all the time. It doesn't have to be profound. It could be, fuck that. The system is not taking care of us. The people are not treating us right. Like it could just be that. So watching that was really impactful. And like I said, she was one of the major people who like I refer to as a photographer, but as in general, just like a deeply creative person. So as I was like starting to paint on my photography, I was like, oh, this looks like what Chloe does. Let me make sure she's involved in some way. And then, the day after I bought my camera, I happened to be curating a show for Quadre. Now, Quadre is his own movement. Quadre is an entirely like self-sustaining ecosystem of creativity. So he's a fine artist, but he also has been doing this thing called the Red Movement lately with one of his co-founders named, I want to say Vivianca is her name. And if you ever see Quadre out, he's dressed in red head to toe, like stockings, shoes, boots, beads, like everything is red. And all his paintings lately have been red, and I want to say it's a pretty recent movement of his. But there's something about it that reminded me of Chloe's Mad series, because there's a lot of red themes in that. But there's something about his self-possession that is contagious, right? Like if you see somebody who clearly does not care what you think, to the point that they have like created this beautiful ensemble that you can't unsee. It's hard not to gravitate to. It's also hard not to capture, right? But as I'm capturing it, I felt like this is deeper than just me taking a photo of somebody. We're collaborating in some way, He was like the first person I shot with my new camera. He also was very like, okay, now do this. Okay, now do this. Oh, that's great. Okay, that, and probably, within like 10 minutes, he was like, you got it. Like, I trust you. He invited me to shoot this performance that he was doing. And that's where I got most of the pictures that are in Reclaim Root. And there was something just so holy about the way that the space was curated. There was like red LED lights on the walls. There was like, everything was red. His performance, the choice of who he had to be there. There was like a sound bath that happened with like tones that are specifically for the root chakra. And I felt grounded in a way that I didn't really know that I needed to be grounded, and it was a moment of just kind of like reclaiming that it's possible to choose how grounded you are and what grounds you and where you're grounded. I think a lot of times by necessity we're grounded sometimes by the worst things that happen to us, or we're grounded by, our family narratives or whatever like the loudest narrative is. But between, King Chloe Katz and Red, I've seen people choose what they're grounded in. I've seen people decide like, this is what feels healthy for me. This is what feels holy to me. And therefore this is who I am. This is what you call me. King is like I'm king, right? Quadre is like I'm Red, right? And in a few ways, me, there's some people that only know me as Beebe, right? So there's a little bit of reclaiming that I've done. But I think Reclaim Root is more about like deciding what vantage point you're coming from, right? What language you're going to be speaking from. And it's very powerful. It's also one of those that's like kind of hot off the presses still. Like Reclaim Root, me and Red have a lot of conversations about where we want to go with that, what it's going to turn into. Because me and him, like, it's funny because he's probably like one of the newest friends I've made in the past year or so. And Chloe's one of my oldest friends. So like that series, having both of them in it is still bubbling, we're still trying to figure out what it's going to be.
I think it's so important what you mentioned, just in terms of narrative and defining oneself in terms of artistry and claiming the power to not allow the world to tell you who you are, to actually go inside and search within yourself. And it's an ever-evolving process. Like, you're always evolving, you're always changing, you're always evolving. It's constant. But once you actually make the intention to say, hey, I want to do the self-work to know myself, and not only that, but to project myself as I see not only who I am now, but who I choose to become, I think there's a very, very dynamic power shift that happens, especially as an artist, once you reclaim that power.
Yeah, reclaiming that root.
So, as a curator, I feel like you're very familiar with the power of messaging behind art, with the importance of storytelling, with the importance of narratives. Land of Living Stories. Could you maybe speak on where the inspiration from that collection came from and what that means to you?
Yeah, so I think, most of the things that I think people really admire about me, I've seen in somebody else in some way. And I think one of the things that I hear a lot about what people admire about me is this, like, the stories that I'm able to tell, or like the journey that I'm able to carry, or like my historical context and my lens onto things. But I get that from somewhere. Like, obviously in my family, in my city, it exists. But a friend of mine, Gabby Knox, her and a partner, they started something called the Joy Project. And I remember when we were on the phone and it was like a baby idea. I remember when it slowly became like a Google document somewhere. I was at the event where they got the first round of funding to make this thing. And essentially what they wanted to do was to have like an urban farm that wasn't just a farm, that was also a means of like healing and storytelling. So they're like growing things, but every piece of the project has like a specific intentionality. So there's remembrance, there's reconciliation, there's those two are obviously my favorite because those will come to mind quickly. There's two others that I can't recall at the moment. But every plot, every like square inch of that land aligns with one of those ideas. So like the remembrance is all about healing, and in that space they talk about like reconnecting the connection between Black people and cotton, right? Because cotton was like the means of a lot of our enslavement, so we all like distance ourselves from it. But cotton actually didn't do nothing to us. Like, it was the people who did it, right? So they grow cotton, they do workshops on like how to engage with cotton. They also do like regular events where they're like repeatedly like telling stories on this land, right? So in the Land of Living Story series, I just have some pictures that I took from that land. And I feel like unless you've been there, unless you talk to Gabby, unless you talk to Jasmine, you really don't hear the stories for real. But when I look at it, I remember all the events I went to where they were like, showing us how to cut up a hog and like the native practices associated with that. Or they do a whole like watermelon day where we talk about the historical significance of watermelon and how great it could be for you. So that land is just like a land of living stories. Like, that's how I feel about it. Like, it's impossible for me to talk about the Joy Project without like lighting up and sitting forward and being like, I remember when, and like, this is what they got coming up next. They do have an event on Sunday if you want to go. So that is such a rich space for me, and I'm still figuring out what collaboration looks like for that Land of Living Stories. But it was so necessary, I think, in the story of Brush and Focus to include the few pictures I did have there. Chloe is actually their like resident photographer. So sometimes I go and take pictures, but honestly, like, she takes way better pictures of that space than like I'm not gonna say that I ever could, but she's like really good at it. So I'm like still figuring out what my relationship to that land feels like. But I know that there is some significance to like not just letting land be land, but letting like land and programming and everything you do contribute to some larger narrative, right? Like, they're really intentional about creating stories, creating experiences that you walk away like, oh, I'm a different person now. Like, I know like what the elevator OC used to do. Like, it's kind of deep over there. That's also why it's kind of like in the back, like you have to walk to it to get to it, because it's that kind of energy, it's that kind of space where like it doesn't necessarily just pop out at you. Like, you gotta do some work. You gotta like engage, contribute, make some type of offering, and then you get it. I mean, they do just let people come through, but like I feel like you get the most out of it when you actually like engage and ask questions.
I also noticed during the series that you have a couple of symbols painted onto the paintings. Could you maybe speak to how symbolism plays a part in your art practice? I know if you look at the series Colorful Kismet, you might see some symbolism there. Yeah. I mean, as well as most of your projects.
Yeah, everyone has
a little something.
Yes, I love symbols. I think symbols do a great job of like capturing a paragraph worth of things in one symbol. So for me, creatively, especially as somebody who primarily does abstract work, it's been really important and helpful to have a symbol that can carry so much meaning without me. All of my symbols that I use are typically Ndigra symbols, which are West African Ghanaian symbols. There's a whole like dictionary of, I want to say like the canonized version of Ndigra symbols. It's probably like 300 or 400 of them. Most Black people have probably interacted with like 30 of them. I've been like pushing myself to get a little deeper into like what the other symbols are. But for me, each of them have like really powerful meanings that sometimes I think we need to engage with more. Some of them have meanings that I don't want nothing to do with. You know, some of them are about conflict and strife and what to do when things happen. But a lot of the symbols that I use are usually some type of like healing or some type of like expansion. My favorite one is Batato. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly because I've never heard anybody else pronounce it. But it's my favorite because it means reconciliation. And I think a lot of my creative practice is me reconciling with myself. But a lot of what I want for this world is us to reconcile with each other and this land and how we treated ourselves and how we treated this land. So it's been important to me to include those symbols. I also think that like the more symbols I include in my artwork, the more my audience will start to notice them and see them out in other places, right? So it's a little bit of my like educator trying to like edge and like, you should look this thing up. It's kind of interesting, yeah. And colorful kismet in and of itself speaks to like not just me using symbols, but me using color as symbol, right? Because I think if you know my art, you appreciate my art, you know that like I'm a little ridiculous with the color palette. Like my color palette is literally all of the above. But it's not arbitrary, right? And there's something, this might sound arrogant, but there's something like correct about the way that I use color. And that correctness usually just comes from like a patience to see it through until it gets to the point of being full and correct and like not too much. That's not to say that I don't have some pieces that are a lot, but like they're a lot on purpose. You know, like they're a lot because the idea or the emotion that they're reflecting is a lot. So that's also like one of the symbolism that's coming through in colorful kismet. Is like, because kismet is all about, it's a little like happenstance, not happenstance, like serendipity, when something is like perfect accidentally and it's to the point where it feels divine. And I'm realizing that like my use of color is kismet in some way, right? And color for me always has meaning. Like I'm either thinking about a chakra or I'm thinking about how it complements the color next to it or what it does to the color behind it. So I've been trying to take that more seriously, right? Because I think I've just been known as being colorful. But I know that the color is not arbitrary, and I want to make sure I'm like explicit about that.
I feel like as an abstract artist myself, I definitely resonate with this. I feel like the colors in itself are an expression, especially as an abstract artist where we're not using words or necessarily figures. I feel like if you understand color as energy, as wavelengths, as things that hit different parts of our souls once we absorb it or once we receive it, and the emotions that it evokes from our different souls, it's so interesting to me how something that could mean one thing to somebody else could mean something completely different to anyone else looking at the same image. I know in your series, Abstract Alchemy, you kind of tap into that bag.
Yeah.
Could you maybe speak a little bit about where Abstract Alchemy came from, how colors inspired that as well?
So Abstract Alchemy was a show I did, was that last year? I think that was last year. Or was that the year before? Yeah.
I think last year. It was a year ago.
I've been doing too much if that was last year. I'm sorry, you can edit this out. That just blew my mind. So last year.
You working.
Last year I did this show called Abstract Alchemy. And it was my biggest, like first solo show in the city. And you know, I felt a type of way about being an abstract artist. I felt like I had something to prove, but I also felt like there was something about abstract work that people weren't appreciating for real. And I also felt like for me and in my journey, my artwork and my relationship with color had been a thing that had been helping me to grow, helping me to change. And I really felt like my work was helping me to like alchemize my existence and my reality. So Abstract Alchemy as a show was all about like understanding the power of artwork to change the trajectory of your life, right? To change the trajectory of who you are and how you believe and what you say. And that show has really been like a pretty solid building block, and there have been connections that I've made since then that continue to flourish and grow. But there's also been ways of understanding myself that still evolve and me to this day. So as I was putting together Brush and Focus, like as much as I wanted it to have new pieces that people had never seen from me before, it also felt necessary to kind of cite the source of these things, right? There would be no Brush and Focus without Abstract Alchemy. And there were a few pieces of Abstract Alchemy that just I feel like might be necessary in every show I have. So one of them is Ancestor Reunion, just because it's like my way of honoring everything that's come before me. And, you know, there's a very Black practice of like honoring elders and stuff before you start. So that's why the show starts with Abstract Alchemy. There's also this series called Symphony of Progress that was released for the first time in Abstract Alchemy, and I was really insecure about that series, and it's one of my best-selling series. And I wanted it to like still have a place in it, so it's like one of the last pieces of the show. But I think more importantly, like the point of Abstract Alchemy as a show and as a part of Brush and Focus is to remind myself and also my audience that like everything we do creates our tomorrow in some way, right? And by choosing to like be an abstract painter, by choosing to be somebody who like creates in a specific way, I'm pushing myself forward in that way. I'm walking towards a path of more of this, right? I'm alchemizing my reality in some way. But also I think it also is a reminder for myself and other artists out there that just because a show is done doesn't mean it died. You know, like energy is never lost or created, it always continues to exist. And I think a lot of times as artists, we're like so focused on our next big thing that we don't really give honor and space to what's happened already. And there's nothing really natural about doing a show in a month. Like this show took years to create. Who am I to think that everything it has to say will be done in a month that the show is up? You know, and I think because we're all kind of starved for space and starved for attention, we move on to the next thing because we want to keep it interesting for people. That doesn't mean that we have to let go of that show. You know, we don't have to be over it yet. And I'm not over Abstract Alchemy. Like, I feel like me and Eli are still having the same conversation we had when we did the artist talk for that show. Like, that stuff is still living. So for me, it was important to start the show that way, but also to end the show with that, because I think that was the first show where I was like super intentional about like, let's put the insecurities on the wall. Let's be honest about how we feel about the things. Let's let it speak, you know. And it's still speaking to the thing. Like the first piece that sold in the show was Ancestor Reunion, and then was Live.
And I feel like it's so important to mention that because, especially for artists who are just starting out, might not necessarily have their footing yet, I feel like we can get so easily stuck in our heads, right? Where we think ourselves out of action. And you're somebody who I know is really, really great at, no matter what the internal shakes might be feeling, you're gonna still put one foot in front of the other and get it done. Could you maybe give any advice to aspiring artists out there who feel like I have the talent, I have an intention, I have a message, I want to be seen, but I don't necessarily know how to navigate the art business and the art world?
I think my biggest piece of advice would be to find people that you believe in, that you trust, and volunteer. Because a lot of, sorry, I'm so easily distracted. It's the other Dr. Chanel, hey girl! All right, coming back to the answer. Find people that you trust and that you believe in and volunteer. Because a lot of the things that I've been able to do, I first did for somebody else. And I think a lot of times we have all of these grand ideas and stuff that we can do. And yes, you can put one foot in front of the other and figure it out. But if you figure it out on your own stuff and on your own brand, people don't really forget those things, right? So it's like, you don't necessarily want your first time ever doing a thing being just for you. Because there are so many people who, like so many creatives who are doing too much and need to delegate and would love to have somebody come in and help in some way. And even if they don't actually want you to do the thing, the conversation about it will give you something that you need before you do it yourself. So I'll definitely say like find somebody that you trust, right? Don't just be volunteering out here because people will exploit you and you working for nothing. But have somebody that you trust and that you believe in, and find a way to work with them. You know, like my first time curating was because I just volunteered to curate a show. Like eventually on the back end we figured out some type of commission, but initially it was just because I was interested and I wanted to learn, you know. My first time really getting to know, the reason why I have the connections I have in Breakfast Club is because when I came, I volunteered for a show, and the best way to get to know somebody is by working with them, right? So I definitely suggest that. Also suggest just taking your time and like letting yourself make things that are ugly, letting yourself make things that you don't like, and still sharing those things with people. Because I think the better you can get at being rejected, the farther you'll go, right? The better you can get at not being accepted, the better you can get at people not being in love, people just walking by, the longer I think you'll last. Because especially for abstract artists, it takes us a while to find our people, right? Like, because to some, you know, especially in Detroit, a lot of this art scene is looking for a certain type of thing sometimes, or they haven't quite figured out what it is they're looking for. And sometimes you're just not it, you know, and that is not personal, that's just true. And I think it's easier for you to accept that once you've had a little bit of experience in that. And I think for me, you know, maybe having an engineering background, maybe being in a male-dominated field and like repeatedly being told that I'm not good enough, it kind of gave me a little bit of like, well, that happens. Like people always think you're not good enough. Like that's not, I've got nothing to do with you. People don't think that regardless. But I think that's helped me a lot in my art career because it gives me a lot of patience for like, you know, how long it takes a piece to sell or how many shows I have to do before somebody shows up. You know, like just kind of letting that not be personal, letting that be a part of the journey. And also, like, you know, nobody wants to hear this, but I highly suggest doing as much as you can so that you're not trying to eat off your art initially. Because you do your art a really big disservice by putting that much pressure on it. It works for people. Like I've seen people get it out the mud and make it happen. But usually if you talk to them, there's something else that was happening along the way. There's something else that was like giving them a little bit of space to be creative, giving them a little bit of space. It might not be a lot of space, you know, but I just think it's easiest if you can let the art breathe and not put the art to work initially, because it's gonna work over time, you know. But like a lot of artists, we out here trying to like move mountains with like merch money and like let something else happen, you know, like let yourself be a few different things so that all those things can work for each other. Because I think a lot of us have this really weird conception that like, you know, you think about the Jay-Z's and the Michael Jordans and people who get known for one thing, and it's like, yeah, but like listen to that story, like he was selling crack that whole time. Like, you know, like, and I don't think you should at all be doing that, but like, it was not the raps, you know, it wasn't, you know, so like letting yourself be a full person, letting yourself have a few streams of income, some of which don't personally matter to you, can be helpful so that you can like pour your personal into the things that really do matter.
I definitely think it's important to give your art room to breathe, especially in life. Like I'm also somebody who art does not pay my bills yet. It's
coming.
It's coming, but not yet. And on the one hand, I do sometimes feel that it gives me a certain ease, but also I've learned that there's a greatness in, like we were saying, necessity. There is transmutation, struggle. So no matter where you are in your artistic career, you know what I'm saying, whether you are getting it out the mud, so to say, or if you do have a 9 to 5 or some kind of other income that helps supplement your art career, I think the number one thing that you have to do is persevere. You have to, and what you said about basically dealing with rejection, getting comfortable being rejected, but not allowing it to shake or deter you. I think that's one of the most pivotal things you can do as an artist, and one of the greatest services you can definitely do to your art.
I'd also say be confident in whatever version of your journey you're taking, because a lot of times, especially when I meet people younger than me, I can tell in their eyes that like their life will change based off the next word that I use, and that's really, really dangerous. Like you need to have some conception of what you want for yourself and some conception of what it is for you, even if it's not completely optimal, even if it's not efficient, even if you can't find a person to validate that thing for you, because sometimes it is get it out the mud time and you're not gonna find nobody to confirm that for you. Sometimes it is go back to work and save your money time. You might not find nobody to confirm that to you, but that don't mean that that's not what time it is. You know, like having some concept of that, I think will save you a lot of heartache, because you know, I remember looking at my mentors and like wanting them to tell me what to do, and luckily they didn't, you know, but I meet so many people who want me to tell them what to do, and I'm like, first off, don't try to do what I did. Them doors is closed. Like, let's find some doors for you.
And I think, I'm just gonna end it with this question because you literally run right in. So I was gonna ask you, what do you think an artist can do to find their own flow? And I feel like that's probably one of the biggest components in everything that you just said, because once you do I'm gonna say terms, once you really lock in and once you have found your own flow, and like I said, it's an ever-evolving, ever-changing, ever-fluxing process. I do believe that that's when your art starts showing up for you, as well as, you know, imagine you showing up for it. So in terms of you finding your own flow, I know that you said you had a very specific journey. It's not necessarily recreatable, but what key elements do you think you could pass on to the next generation in order of helping them find themselves?
I would say follow your joy. There's been a lot of like paint colors that I bought just because I liked how it looked. There's been a lot of collaborations that I did because it just felt right when I ran into them on the street that day, and I didn't really have a reason, but like it turned into something amazing. Follow that spark. I think there's something magical and unspoken that we just know in our gut sometimes, but because we want validation or because we want to feel correct, we try to give it language, we try to rationalize it. Sometimes you can talk yourself out of a good thing, because for me, a lot of the most amazing things in my life didn't make sense on paper initially. You know, like me curating at the congregation, or, you know, like sometimes there are things that like don't necessarily make dollars that make sense, you know. And sometimes there are things that make dollars that don't make no sense. But your gut knows, you know, and I think that's how you end up in flow, right? It's like every step you take, letting that step be as close to what feels good to you as possible. It's not to say that there's not gonna be things that you gotta do that's not gonna feel good, right? But like, I think the more that I followed that, the better my life has gotten, but also the better my art has gotten as a function of that.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. So, is there anything else that you wanted to mention? Anything you wanted to promote or let the audience know before we go?
I would say just stay in touch with me. I think a lot of times people think that when the show is finished, something is done or over, but like all this work is still gonna exist in some way. I'm still gonna be doing events and stuff like that, so stay in touch. Also, you know, if there's anything you're interested in that you like, I want that piece but I don't get it, let me know. I take payment plans, most artists do. Like it, I would rather you have it than it sit in my mom's garage, you know, just because you don't got the full whatever. Because I'm really here for like getting the art into the hands of people so that they can, you know, eat off this value, you know, because it's just going up from here. So I want all of y'all to be like bricked out with Beebe paint so that when it go up, y'all are millionaires too.
Right. Thank you so much for your time. I definitely appreciate you sitting down with us for the show, allowing me to have my first moderator experience. It was definitely great. Thank you. Yeah, you can follow us at the Find Your Flow Show.
Yes, it is.
Make sure you follow Chanel at
BBW on Instagram, and the artist Chanel Beebe on Facebook.
We're out of here. You guys take care.
Thank you.